What's up, everybody? Brett Mix for Macho Wrestling 101. Welcome back to the Monday Night Wars. This is week 107. We'll review these shows in under 10 minutes. As always, for whenever you want to go back and relive the wars, we'll have you covered. This is another look at Nitro vs. Raw. The ratings for Raw remained big in this week in comparison to earlier months in 1997. They scored a 3.0 tonight, and Nitro scored a 3.9 in comparison. So WCW wins for the 69th week in a row. Nitro won 0.9 points in the difference in the Nielsen ratings, 3.9 to 3.0. So now after this week's loss for Raw, the total scoreboard has Raw sitting at 17 wins all time since the war started, with 88 losses and 2 draws through the 107 weeks. Again, 17 wins, 88 losses, 2 draws for Raw. This show this week went on live on Monday night on the USA Network for November the 24th, 1997. It took place from the Cumberland County Memorial Auditorium in Fayetteville, North Carolina, USA. This was known mostly for the episode of HBK welcoming back Bret Hart, only for those promises fell a little bit short. Also, the Raw with Neidhart joining DX, only for that to get sucker punched by DX, as we'll go into. And also the Austin Rocky beeper segment where it says 316. There's a lot of good stuff on the show tonight. We opened it with a thorn in your eye, as most weeks do. Crowd seems loud for this one. There's signs virtually everywhere in the crowd. First was Harvey Whippleman coming out to the gimmick of Rick Rude's music, and DX is now not DX, but the WWF is now mocking Rick Rude, saying his presence wasn't really needed. Shawn comes out. And he says that wasn't a hard gimmick to mock, and he pushes down Harvey Whippleman, just tongue-in-cheek to Rick Rude, who went to WCW after the screw job. HBK says now that Raws are live, he says he hasn't been able to sleep much because thinking of the Bret Hart situation. Shawn says Bret Hart deserved better. HBK says he and Bret had a meeting that no one knows about. Not the internet, not the dirt sheet writers, nobody. He said Bret and HBK had an agreement they'd settle tonight. HBK says tonight he and Bret will settle all their differences. JR and Cornette on commentary with each other is highlighting the night's events. They can't help but wonder what HBK is talking about, neither can the fans. As that clearly stuck a lot of the audience onto Raw, who was just going to go to Nitro anyway, but they want to check out what this Bret Hart thing is. Opening match in the ring was Billy Gunn and the Road Dogg taking on the LOD for the tag titles. LOD was, of course, the tag champions at the time. Billy Gunn and the Road Dogg are not called the New Age Outlaws yet, but they're definitely a team on the rise. Road Dogg even says, "Oh, you didn't know?" when he comes out for one of the first times. He doesn't say your ass better call somebody, but he just goes on to talk trash. The Outlaws came out with spike pads put on, their chest spike pads that mimic the LOD. But the Legion of Doom weren't very happy with it. Roadbury Animal with the power slam once back in, takes it to Gunn. Hawk and Animal go for the Doomsday device, but Road Dogg hits Hawk with a chair, and the Outlaws steal the win that way. The Outlaws win the WWF Tag Gold at 9:23 after a big chair shot goes into an inside cradle by Billy Gunn. The fans are stunned, but that's the big push here for the Outlaws to win the titles to kick off Raw. After the match, the Outlaws got out of Dodge and drove their way out of the arena, out of the Carolinas. It gave the match a star and a half, as the New Age Outlaws, who are yet to be called that, but they're now the tag team champions. They show a limo pull up backstage, and people speculate if it's Bret Hart. Goldust in a wheelchair comes out with a doctor, and he's in a wheelchair, and it says "F you" on his face, standing for Forever Unchained. Michael Cole, who is a new colleague at the time, interviews Goldust, asking why he attacked Vader. Goldust says he belongs to no one. Goldust asks for minor favors, and we see too much of the Golden One as he crosses his legs. Finally, someone happens to in this segment as Vader comes down. Vader says Goldust better get out of the wheelchair or he'll permanently become a part of it. The doctor who is with Goldust ends up being Luna Vachon as she takes off her doctor hat and doctor gown. She ends up being Luna Vachon in her return. She now is Goldust's new colleague. They sprayed alcohol into Vader's eyes when Vader went to attack Goldust in the wheelchair. So Vader has to cover his eye as he goes to the back to try and get his eye taped up and flushed out, of course. Segment was okay. It looked like it was going nowhere until the doctor revealed herself as Luna. And at least Vader got the spray, so that continues the Vader-Goldust feud. They do a vignette with Helmsley and Slaughter as they'll meet in a boot camp boot camp match, and In Your House DX. Interesting how WCW at the time was having Larry Zbyszko and Scott Hall in a feud in December of 97, the same time when Slaughter and Triple H also was going to have their match in December of 97 on pay-per-view. It's kind of like you see mirror images of each other from WWF and WCW at the time. Each one tried to up the other, and they'd do similar things at similar times. DX, NWO, of course, Raw, SmackDown, Raw, Nitro Thunder. There's so many instances, but we'll get to that as the weeks go on. Brian Christopher with Jerry Lawler versus Flanagan in a light heavyweight title quarterfinal match. Flanagan with a somersault plancha to get things started. King is with Son out there. Monkey flipped out of the corner, but he stands on his toes, and he springboards from the ropes. Brian Christopher ended up defeating Flanagan in the end. A full Nelson leg trip face first into the canvas, then a reverse DDT out of the corner, followed by the Tennessee Jam, which is a guillotine leg drop, across the collarbone, and Christopher was victorious at 3:30. Thanks to his dad helping on the outside, he gave the match 2 stars. Jim Ross questions on commentary that if Bret Hart arrives, I'm pretty sure he's alive. If he's there to confront HBK, or what else might he do? King joins JR on commentary for the second hour. DX once again comes out. HBK answers back to Slaughter. HBK says, tonight we introduce Bret the Hitman Hart. His music hits, and out comes a midget with a mask of Bret. Look, a Bret replica mask. For the next 10 minutes, obnoxious depravity is displayed on camera, is delivered in this promo as HBK puts his hand on Hart as Hart's punching the air. Really tasteless stuff, but that's what DX was at the time. HBK put the midget in a sharpshooter while Triple H made the call, an overly long call, that Bret was tapping out. And they asked him, who is the main event? Who is the who is the showstopper? And the midget Bret cries out the answers to Shawn Michaels. In the documentary Wrestling with Shadows with Bret Hart, he wasn't too happy with the segment, but who would be? Then Jim Neidhart comes out, which is a big moment. He says he's going to kick Shawn's butt. If that sounded bad, it's because it was. This was during the War Zone in the second hour. He might as well have said ass. It's not like people on the show can't say ass. At least when no one returns, he used some big cuss words, but we'll have to get to that in future weeks. HBK says he says DX has an offer for Neidhart to join DX. He has some time to make this decision. Shamrock took on Savio Vega. A power slam by Shamrock. He evaded Vega's offense. Shamrock wins at 5:20 as the fans are allowed to applaud in the way of the next pay-per-view's number one contender to take on Shawn Michaels and In Your House DX, who is Ken Shamrock. I gave the win over Savio Vega a star and a quarter. They show The Rock coming to the ring, he's leading the nation. The Rock with Austin's title. He snags the mic and calls the interviewer jabroni for one of the first times. On the Titantron, it said, Rocky sucks, and we learned that Austin was in the production truck. Stone Cold then came out from behind the Rock, and Rock checked his beeper, and it says 316, and he does a wide-eyed rate. It was perfect as he turns around and Austin hits him. Then the Nation come out, and Austin flips the bird and says, Happy Thanksgiving. DOA come out next as Jeff is backstage. Jeff Jarrett says he's not going to wrestle people like Chains. Kane came out instead and beat up Chains, so we got Kane beating up more people. Officials came to the ring and Kane chokeslammed Gerald Briscoe. Chains is left without an opponent, and Jeff Jarrett is demanding better from the WWF. Shawn Michaels in the main event of Raw took on Vader. HBK comes off the ropes, but Vader then, with his alcohol in one eye patched up, gets hot coffee in the other eye by Triple H. So HBK with a super kick from behind Vader's head, and then it turns around another super kick after a lariat was missed, and this 4-minute match ends and HBK is victorious after 2 sweet chin musics. Tough night for Vader with alcohol and then hot coffee in both each other's eyes. After the match, there was Neidhart raising each other's arms until HBK and Triple H turned on Neidhart, as Neidhart had joined DX by coming out with them, only to get stomped on. To end the show, they had DX beat on the Neidhart, who was duped. HBK then said on the mic, Who's the icon? Who's the showstopper? And then he said, DX rules the wrestling world. So quality rating-wise, I'd give the show a 6.5 out of 10. Once again, it was another Raw delivered by promo work, stories, and building characters and rivalries than it was matches. There was only 4 matches on the card. The light heavyweight tournament, which provided some good stuff, but the stories with the midget Bret, the Anvil joining and then being disgraced, the rivalries like Goldust Vader, Triple H Slaughter, and The Rock Austin with the beeper segment. They just really did a lot of character work, rivalry work, so I think 6.5 out of 10 is the fair rating for this Raw is War as we continued through the year of 1997. Hit like and subscribe if you're enjoying these reviews. I love pumping them out as we get only to the bigger and better episodes. So stay with me for the next one. I'm Brett Mix, and I'm out.